Alright, this is going to be a updated movement guide, part 2, because lots of the things in my first one are now outdated and don't work anymore. I'll get over those first, then I'll go over the basics again, talk about some advanced movement, and then I'll talk about some other funny things that I've found that aren't really useful but could be circumstantial. So to dress, first thing that no longer works from my first movement guide is left side peeking. It used to be that if you peeked from the left side like this, you would show less of your body. So like if I was peeking like this from left side, it would look like this from right side. It would look like I'm out here. That's no longer a thing. Now both sides are the same, or at least very close. Another thing is Lightfoot has been massively nerfed. So in the last guide I talked about using Lightfoot in combination with jumping and crouch walking to move almost silently like this. This no longer works. You now make noise when you jump with Lightfoot. I'll start again with the basics. So first off, what I recommend having when you're doing movement. The first thing is a stam shot or conduit or both. It's even better. So then you can do it all game. But basically the reason you want this is because it just makes it so you can run infinitely. Greyhound and like Determination do work, but stam shot's just better because it's infinite running. You can melee infinitely, which is nice because that's what I like to do. So use your stamina. Another thing you need is kite skin. You don't need it, but it's very recommended because you can rotate more. There's more things you can do with kite skin. You can do it quieter. One example of why kite skin would be good is, say, for example, jumping off this here. Like, say I wanted to jump down there. As you see, I lose a bar. With kite skin, I wouldn't lose a bar, so it's just much quicker. You don't have to heal as much. You also, there's lots of places where you do it quieter, too. So as you heard, I'll just do it again. When you jump off something that's too high, like where it does damage, you take fall damage, right? So you go like this. Okay, well. Take fall damage, right? Boom, that hurt. And my character lets the enemy know that it hurt. Makes noise. With kite skin, there's kind of a sweet spot where you jump off things and it'll sound like this. As you see, I jumped up there because I didn't take fall damage, but I could probably jump off that and not take fall damage as well. So it's more useful to be quiet when you're rotating around. So bring Lightfoot. Alright, but anyways, movement basics. So the basics are, basically, bare minimum you need to know to do any movement is how much you can jump and how much you can crouch, and when you should and when you shouldn't. So you can jump twice. That is still unchanged. If you jump more than twice, you will become stunned, as you can see. The third time, I got very slow. And that goes for crouching too. Once you crouch 3 times in quick succession, you're very slow. So what I recommend doing is never running in a straight line, first of all. What I recommend doing is strafing without A&D. Don't strafe with A&D. Doing it without is much cleaner. You just turn your mouse than doing it with A&D. You move, it almost feels slower, and you do it much more snappy and fast. Your head moves much more. So what I recommend doing is basically, say I'm out in the open, and I'm not going to go to cover. I'm wide swinging someone. What I recommend doing is jumping and crouching in quick succession, kind of like this. Just doing it sporadically. You'll get better at doing it. You'll figure out how much time you have the more you do it. But the more you do it, the quicker you're on. My aim's ass because it was my first game on, or first time on today. But yeah. Another thing is when you're running to cover, don't be doing stuff like this. You want to get to cover as fast as possible. If you're doing this stuff, sure, you're harder to shoot, but they have more chances to shoot you. So if you're running to cover, what I recommend doing is just jumping and sprinting and strafing. Don't crouch. Don't try and fake them out. It's not really worth it. You can do, like, if it's something pennable and you're fighting a really good player, like say this is a wood wall, is you can kind of just before you go through the door do a little jump back like that. But again, it's more than likely it's just going to get you killed trying to do that. Yeah, so just to reiterate basics, you can jump twice, you can crouch twice, strafe without A and D, just with your mouse, and don't do too much crazy movement when you are trying to get into cover fast. Alright, so this next one is a very big one. I guarantee you all the top players do it. And that is when you're shooting people to crouch as you shoot. Because it lessens, so as you can see, if you look, it'd be easier to do with a marksman scope, but as you can see, when I look like this, just naturally, this is without touching my mouse, my crosshair is moving. When I crouch, it's way less. So what I recommend doing is you're jumping around, right? And then when you go to shoot, you crouch, shoot, and keep moving again. So you do that very quick. That will make, so you do that very quick. That will make it just very slightly easier to aim because your crosshair is moving very slightly less. It's a very small thing, but it also makes you more unpredictable. The only time don't do this is don't do it when you're crouching a corner, unless you go like this. That's fine, but don't crouch around a corner because you're just going to get your head taken off. Because your head will be the first thing they see, right? All they see is my head right now. If that was a person, he sees my head and that's all. Right? Alright, and this next one is not as useful, but can be in certain circumstances, and that's jump spamming to peek over things. So, earlier I said don't ever jump spam. This is an exception. Say like, you know, you want to peek a guy here and you're behind this. If you jump and you can shoot him, right? It's very, like, no one does it. And it's very unpredictable. Like, I doubt someone will be holding an angle up here unless you do it multiple times. So you can basically jump spam and peek things like that. Alright, next thing I'm going to talk about is using ledges and weird places to basically negate fall damage. So, as you can see down there, weird things that you can stand on, you can use them to stop fall damage. And the way that works is basically there are two states of movement, right? There's on the ground, which is when you're hearing footsteps, and there's in the air, which is when you're not hearing footsteps. Basically, you can wedge yourself onto something, but it's not like a big enough space for you to stand on, and you'll just float there. And if you float long enough, yeah, you won't take fall damage. So an example of that is I can jump off of this tower without taking fall damage. As you can see here, then you can go down like this, down like this. I fucked it up, so I took fall damage, but you get the point. So normally if I jumped off, I would have probably taken a lot of damage and possibly died. But I did it without taking any damage, or I could have done it without taking damage if I... Alright, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is related to the ledges that I use to stop fall damage. You can also use ledges to basically run around things. Like for example here, this is just one I knew off the top of my head, but they're all over the map. You can use ledges. Alright, you can use ledges to, like, so if I jump and hold forward, I can rotate around things like this. You can get to weird peaks like this. You can do all kinds of stuff with them. So use ledges. Anything you see that looks like it can be walked on, lots of time can be. You basically, what you do is you run towards the wall and hold down A or D depending on which way you're going, while holding W. And I find sprinting helps too, if you want to do it faster, but obviously you're more likely to fall off. The next thing I'm going to talk about is crouch vaulting. This is a more advanced thing, but it's very useful and it's very easy to do. It's just not many people know about it. So basically what that is when you crouch, you can get on certain things that you couldn't normally vault up onto. For example, things like, this is just one example I know off the top of my head. As you can see, I can't get up on this dog kennel. I'm spamming my vault button, as you guys can hear. But if I crouch and do it, all of a sudden it works. I don't really have an explanation for why that is, and it sometimes doesn't work, it sometimes does work. But what I recommend doing is just crouching when you're vaulting, and you'll be able to vault up more stuff. Alright, so this is a very useful trick. This one is, not many people know about this one, as far as I know. And that is using lanterns to open windows. So as you can see, if I throw a turned off lantern at the window, it'll open it, right? So, by the way, you have to turn the lantern off. If you don't turn it off, it's just going to blow up on the window. But the reason this could be useful is you do something like this, right? You throw it, and then peek from, like, say here. And this is more effective against good players because they, from their perspective, just give me 10 seconds to run over that. It looks like this. And most good players, they'll see that window open and they'll snap to it. And then if you peek from there, like, it's over for them, right? I believe it also might work with doors, but that would. Alright, so this next thing is almost useless, but it is kind of funny, and that involves decoys. You can basically, if you throw a bunch of them in quick succession, it'll sound like footsteps. I think this is actually what they're intended to be used for, but it's very funny and stupid. But you basically throw it like that. As you can hear, it sounds almost identical. Like, if someone did this to me, I would have no idea. You basically just throw them on, it sounds like footsteps. Very stupid. I guess it could be useful in some circumstances, but as far as I know, it's not really. And obviously, it works on wood. It works on everything. Alright, so the final tip I'm going to talk about in this video is to just try things. That's like the #1 way to unlock movement and stuff, is to just do stuff. You'll find spots, which is, like I mentioned with the crouch walking, the jumping on ledges, and also like the walking around ledges. It's not really useful unless you know where you can do it. And the only way to do that is to try stuff and fail. So that's basically what I do, is if I'm in a game and, you know, boss is vanishing and no one's around, or the lobby's dead and I'm just running around, my randoms are doing something, I'll just start crouch vaulting on stuff and trying to run on ledges, like stuff like this. Most of the time it doesn't work, but sometimes you'll find something that is cool that you can use. So that's what I say. Just try stuff, and you'll become better and better as you do more things. And also, don't take the game seriously. Just play it and fuck around. Yeah, peace out, everyone.